I'm glad you're coming around. How you doing?
Anxiety attacks, no sleep, depression, hitting all the cliches. Sometimes it just feels like
You're getting lost up there.
It's okay. Everything's gonna be okay.
Miss Andrews, are you okay?
definitely not.
What's up, guys? Welcome to the Bomb Squad. Look at my mustache. It's coming in Red Dead Redemption style. They're fine. You're loving the guests. But we had to take a special week because it's MI week. It's Mission Impossible week. So we are taking a stop to watch one of the best and worst received Mission Impossible movies, which we'll tell you which one in a second. But first, let me tell you about another movie about a young girl who had a dream. It's called The Empty Space, and you can rent it or buy it now. Everyone on Film Twitter loves physical media. Well, guess what? You can buy the DVD, so it better be sold out by next week. Now, back from commercial. So this movie was picked as one of the worst movies. Like, it's routinely picked as one of the worst of the franchise. And so we're, of course, talking about MI2, Mission Impossible 2, directed by John Woo in 2000. It's the second movie, clearly, when movies still had numbers after them. It stars Tom Cruise, Thaddy Newton, Dougray Scott, Ving Rhames, who I've met and who's very nice and who's gigantic in person. It also has Brendan Gleeson in a role that's way better than he should be in, but he kills it. And that's about it. We don't need to know everyone. And so, Joshua, why don't you tell us what this movie is about? And you better do it in the form of a Greek mythology that you make up on the spot.
Yeah,
I won't. I won't. Well, actually, no. I can kind of do that. Okay, because the movie is about like a virus. It's about like a virus, and he has to like stop it from spreading, whatever. But it's really about the apotheosis of Ethan Hunt into like the role he would be for the next like 6 movies. This is like the where it's like the blurred lines, like Tom Cruise fighting the studio to do the super dangerous stunt. That all starts with this movie, and it never really changes after that.
It's also like if you watch the first Mission Impossible, Tom Cruise does not give a shit when people die that much, or Ethan Hunt. And this is the first and now that's kind of his whole arc is that he never wants anyone on his team to die, and this is kind of where that starts. Also, this movie isn't about a virus, or really, it's not about Mission Impossible team.
It's about sex.
This movie's about trying to get some girl to hook up with her ex, and then also wanting to hook up with that same girl.
It's complicated.
It's the most sexually charged Mission Impossible by like a lot. The others maybe go to 10%. This is 90% sexual politics.
Right, especially
it's kind
of ones, there's like none.
Yeah, it's kind of funny because like Tom Cruise has always have a love interest in all these movies, but this is the first one where you like see him in bed. Let's get to the actual movie. So the movie starts off, and there's like a virus that they call Chimera. No, is Chimera the virus? Yes, right.
Chimera's the super flu.
The super flu.
Yeah.
What? And it was made in China? In Wuhan?
It was made in Sydney, Australia, actually.
By a Russian.
I wrote that down.
By one.
Seems a little convenient how close China and Australia are to each other. So they create a virus. I think the main bad guy is a guy named Joe Biden who created a virus of his own. I'm not even talking about the movie anymore. How many coronavirus jokes can I make? And so they create a virus, and well, at the beginning they don't even know what it is. And I want to say like this is kind of refreshing to see like this kind of blockbuster, and this is how blockbusters used to be, because it opens like they do like the whole introducing the plot, but then it opens on Tom Cruise and he's like climbing on a mountain in Utah,
Mhm.
and he's free climbing, and he's like jumping between the mountains, and like that's where John Woo famously said, "Can we use a double?" And then Tom Cruise wouldn't let him because he said it was cheating.
No.
And so John Woo is also like famously from Asian cinema where they cheat at everything except unless you're like doing martial arts. Because like I remember an interview with him where he was talking about how the guns were too heavy because they're real guns, and him and Chow Yun Fat could never get used to like using real guns in a movie. But so it starts off and he's like free basing off of this mountain.
He's free
He's
based.
freebasing?
He's just coked out of his mind.
And there's 100% no reason for him to be like for that action sequence to take place.
Yeah, it's
Like,
not
it
part
doesn't
of
fit
anything. Yeah.
It's just a cool thing he wanted to do.
It's the most. I mean, and that's what it is like. And it was funny because it even mentions in the making of that he like fought to keep that in the movie. He's like, I can't think of any better way to introduce this character. It's like, really, you can't, because this is nothing like he was in the last movie. Like,
That's when that's like the office guy.
yeah, he was the normal guy thrust
Yeah.
into like, oh, I have to do this on my own. And then this one, he's like, no, I am like the most extreme sort superhuman of
And
all time.
Keep
Actually,
in mind, he's on vacation. Like that's a big joke of the movie is that he's doing this on vacation.
Mhm.
So it's not even like, oh, he's on a mission and he's getting more daredevil. It's like, no, he's just decided that I guess he jumping on that train was like, I'm going to do this all the time.
Yeah. I've jumped from plane to train.
Yeah.
Now I'm on
it
all
unlocks
terrain.
something in him. Yeah.
Yeah. And he grew his hair out, so he's like more devil may care.
Yeah.
He's just
definitely-
cooler.
he's
Got a
and
bit of a
definitely-
better
tan.
in every
He's
way.
definitely like this because the whole beginning, the setup is they have to find a terrorist ex-girlfriend and then get her to fall, like kind of honeypot the terrorist into like getting the codes.
And keep in mind, like when we said that this movie's based around sex, like we don't mean like, you know how people will break down Twilight and be like, oh, Twilight's essentially about a guy trying to hook up with a girl. Like, yeah, if you take out like all the context, that's basically what it's about. No, in this movie, Ethan Hunt literally asks Anthony Hopkins, like, I thought you wanted her as a thief. And Anthony Hopkins goes, no, I literally just want her to have sex with the dude. Like, I don't want her for any other reason.
And he says, I'm sorry if you misinterpreted that.
Her
If you
skill
let
set.
that go too
Okay, but
far.
like not only that, but the way he recruits her by like this like sexy drive down like the Spanish countryside is the most James Bond like.
Dude,
It's like that
was
that
Captain from GoldenEye.
Yeah, like literally, it's like, okay, this is just James Bond, and again, he's not like this in any other movie. Like,
Yeah.
It's also like,
straight laced.
so he meets her and she's trying to rob something. Also, Thaddeus Newton could have played a good Catwoman. That's neither here nor there, but I was just noticing.
Yeah.
So
She's good.
she's like trying to rob this necklace, and there's literally a scene where they have to hide in a bathtub, and they do like they're on top of each other, and they do the thing where they're like, "Oh, can I get on top?" Like that clever little wordplay. But then she gets on
Yeah.
top and she
So
sits
nice
up,
dude.
and there's literally a shot of just her breasts and Tom Cruise's head, and it's
Yeah.
It's like the POV of her looking at her own breasts.
Yeah.
Like, it rocks.
it's like right
This-
here. Like,
this-
this will be your breast.
This whole movie, just like editing, like just to even get to that scene, they do like this transition of like a Spanish like dancer spinning
yeah.
to change the scene. It's like a screen wipe, but it's a dancer.
And she's like
There's a lot of
CGI.
flair in this movie. Yeah.
Yeah.
Again, like watching this, it just felt so. I mean, I know that it's like 23 years old now, but it feels so refreshing. Especially like even I saw the last Guardians movie, and they're not really doing any like it. They've kind of like succumbed to the Marvel curse, where now everything's gray, everything's shot
Yeah.
in mediums and like close-ups, and like there's not a lot of like. Or we just saw Indiana Jones, and that movie's dark, and it's like why an Indiana Jones movie should never be dark. Like dark looking, not even
Yeah.
like dark in the sense of the content. And this movie, it's so bright. Like they're going to like. There's a
Yeah.
part after he meets with Thaddeus Newton and gets her on her side. He meets with Anthony Hopkins, who's like the boss, and they're just at this festival where they burn the saints in Spain. But they
Yeah.
weren't like. It's just like he also made Ethan Hawke like travel 200 miles just for like a 10-minute meeting at this festival, and then he's like, "I hate this festival."
And he
But
walks
it's
by the
like,
burning stuff like twice. Like once kind of okay, and the second time pissed.
and the second time, it's
Yeah.
that's one of my favorite scenes because he's just walking and the camera's looking up at him, and the music's like dun 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 dun. It's like fuck yeah, he's gonna go.
Metallica
He-
doing the MI2 theme or whatever.
Yeah, and not only that, but it's the reason that he's so pissed is because he's gonna have to tell his new girlfriend that she's gonna have to fuck another guy, and it's the moral implications that's making him pissed. Um, and like it's
Yeah.
just so vibrant. I just love the way it looks, the way they do that. I mean, with the empty space, we try to like make the transitions also interesting. And I think those are the only two movies that's ever existed. I'm getting a lot of empty space vibes from Mission Impossible.
Especially the poster, like just
Yeah.
flames against Tom Cruise, like just
They both have
like,
people.
And names.
natural
Yeah, yeah.
element.
But it's kind of like, I mean, it's just kind of cool that like John Woo, and it made me sad that this is John Woo's like biggest film, and I kind of wish they were still giving him like a $200 million action franchises, because like imagine how cool it would be if John Woo was like directing a fucking Star Wars movie and Boba Fett had two guns, he's just like shooting everyone,
Yeah.
flying in the air and shit.
What could have been?
I know.
Yeah. I mean, this was like my favorite movie when it came out. Like, I was obsessed with MI2 like that whole summer, and then I think it was my 8th grade school year, like when it was on DVD. And like I just watched the shit out of it, and like watching it this time, I was like, this is the ultimate like 8th grade action movie like of all time. And like I'm not reducing it to that, but like I was like, I wonder if this is gonna hold up. And like from minute 1 to the end, I was like, this fucking slaps so fucking hard. And
Yeah.
there's that part where he's on the beach fighting Dougray Scott, and he like kicks his pistol up in the air and then like spins
Yeah.
and grabs it out of the air. And like I'm not even lying, I practiced that move all the time at my house. I couldn't kick up the gun, so I would just like toss it up and then try and grab it. But I don't know, that movie was like huge for me. I freaking
Oh, it's so
love
stylish. It's like kind of like that, like kind of like the Hong Kong like gun cinema, but like they like tone it down a little bit. Like he won't do full like multiple flips, but he'll like flip once when he's kicking a guy, or when he's like drawing his dual guns, he spins as he's drawing them. It's like didn't need to do that. Just could have taken him out.
And if you think that John Woo isn't gonna hand Tom Cruise two guns and have a dove fly through fire, you're not in the right movie, guys. Because that 100,
Yeah.
they're in a lab. I know we're not explaining what this movie's about, but it's just so cool. That you
It doesn't matter. Yeah.
They're in a lab, and Tom Cruise and the other guys are just blowing that lab up. There's no
They're shooting
consideration.
ice barrels.
Yeah.
It explodes.
It's like a cholera outbreak in like Australia. It's like, yeah, you threw grenades in like a bio lab. What did you think?
They're
I
like,
got it.
Ethan, the good news is Chimera's down. The bad news is you've literally let every other virus out into the world because you just shot them.
All except for Dougray Scott's character.
Yeah.
And that's
Like, look, and then they're like, luckily we have that one virus in Wuhan.
Yeah.
they,
but we'll keep that
it's all a COVID prequel.
Senator Biden. And it's
With
Donald Trump
Brandon
making the
Gleeson.
call.
Damn. See, I'd watch that. No, they really do kind of like emphasize how much like the plot is less important than like, okay, he needs to get this guy or he needs to get this thing away from this guy. And that's kind of how they've all like it's always a super terrorist and he always has to chase him, preferably on a motorcycle at some point, you know.
Yeah. I also feel, William, tell me what you think about this as a huge fan of this franchise. I kind of feel that this isn't Tom Cruise's favorite one, because if you compare this one to the next one, this one, like, it's like they told John Woo that they can wear masks that resemble other people, and John was like, okay, I've put it 5
That's all we're
times.
doing. Yeah.
Yeah. Because in the next one, they do it like once and they show how hard it is. In this one, people are just taking masks off left and they're wearing masks on top of masks.
There's 3 different is this
like,
really
you're
Tom
like-
Cruise fake outs? Like, and it's not any of the times.
Yeah.
Love
Well,
it.
and
That's what Sean
That-
Ambrose specializes in, is taking over his face. It's like his
Yeah.
whole special role as like a Mission Impossible agent.
Yeah,
It's so good.
and I do like the idea that they kind of hired this dude, even though he's a bit unhinged, solely because he kind of resembles Ethan Hunt, which would make sense. Like you need a double. I mean,
Yeah,
American Dad did it, you know.
because
There's
they don't have
also
a pacemaker or a voice changer that like literally anyone can do it. It's like,
Yeah,
my hands were tied, Ethan. My hands were tied.
right
Time.
his like 5 minute role.
Yeah.
No, the actual like villain's plan too is insane because it's not to unleash it's to unleash the virus, but he also has this pharmaceutical company who
Hmm.
has a cure ready. So he's like, okay, he's gonna make a shit ton of money off the cure, but instead of just taking it's like $38 million, he's like, I also want 51% controlling stock of your company. It's like you're a terrorist. How are you gonna like go to board
oh,
meetings?
that was good. Do
Good for
great,
you.
Scott. You're a capitalist through and through, and I love you.
It's like,
It's
why do you want controlling
also
stock?
like, and here's why we haven't been talking too much about the plot, because I'm going to break down the plot for a second and it's going to take me about 25 minutes. So what happens is they're trying to create the ultimate vaccine for the flu. They end up making a really bad virus, and so the doctor wants to destroy it, but then the pharmaceutical company injects his partner, and they see how bad like of a virus it is, and so the other doctor's like, let me inject it. I got to get it out of here. So he injects it into himself to take it to Atlanta just in case the virus gets out. And then he's murdered by Sean Ambrose, who steals the antidote. And then they take off. But then the pharmaceutical company is like, well, we want the virus. So they make a deal with Ambrose. But Ambrose also has other bidders who also are bidding. And then, but then Ambrose is like, oh, by the way, I didn't really care about the bids. I want control of your company because it's going to go crazy when you start selling this vaccine. And so then they want to unleash it in Sydney. Like, also, they want to unleash it like that week. Like, the minute they buy it, they don't want it to go bad, I guess, because they want it to happen that week. And so they're all ready to go. And it's like, and then there's a part where Ethan says all this, and then Bing Rames is like, "That's simple, huh?" And then
Yeah.
he's like, "That's
Why wouldn't it
simple,"
be?
and it's like, "That's not simple at all. This is so complicated."
there's there's this part where because Brendan Gleeson's the CEO of the pharmaceutical company, where
That's like two scenes.
yeah, the Mission Impossible agents kidnap him, but they kidnap him by
Oh yeah.
putting like gas in his limo, and then they hand him a fake newspaper, and the fake newspaper says like
He's
Brendan
dead.
Gleeson's character has died of like the
yeah.
virus, and then then he passes out, but it's just knockout gas, and it's like. Why did you make someone
Yeah, it's
Photoshop a paper to be very confusing for a couple seconds? Like, it's not.
Well, and then
He's just like, what? And then they immediately it's like you made some like Mission Impossible intern spend like an hour like clicking on
They
like
just
the
did
not
that
text.
only
dream anyways. They're like, oh, he wakes back up in his limo and he's fine. It's like, okay.
yeah. Well, and then they take him to a secret thing where he still thinks he's been infected with the virus,
And so
but
do
then
we.
he thinks, yes, so do we. And then the guy who they murdered at the beginning comes back. I mean, it's clearly Ethan Hunt, but he's wearing them, and so this guy thinks he's still alive, even though he like exploded in a plane crash. And the only person the person who murdered him, this guy has had direct contact with multiple times, and then he confesses in the most John Woo, like I don't think he understands subtlety way, because he literally says, "I, Brendan Gleeson's character name, have done this and
Yeah.
am in control." It's like nobody ever
Yeah.
talks like that.
He's like, I did it because I
He's in
love
trouble.
money. I'm that much of a
And
capitalist.
Yeah.
like at no point is he like, "Wait, aren't you dead?" And then at the same time, someone pretending to be Ethan Hunt is tricking Thandie Newton into staying with the Great Scott, because she's like, "Oh, I thought you were gonna get me out of here," and he's like, "No, you need to stay and keep kissing him." And then
Yeah.
she
And then
leaves.
he backs away from her kiss. Not
Yeah,
right now, I'm Ethan Hunt not kissing you.
It's just so funny because, like, if you see
yeah,
the last 6 movies after this, it's like they are all literally one face swap scene apiece, maybe.
Yeah.
I think in the Henry Cavill one, they even do the thing where he breaks the machine accidentally, and then so they just don't even get to use it that time. But this one, they're like, no,
It's so
8
fun.
times. You're gonna see 8 switches.
yeah. It's so amazing.
Yeah. So many.
And then like
I remember in the
it's
video game in 64, you could like do the face maker, and it was like a game changer for sure.
Oh, really? In the video game, could you be whoever?
Yeah,
That's
you could
pretty
like change
cool.
people's faces a lot. Like you had to like sneak through like embassies and like it was
Mhm.
based on the first movie though. It wasn't the second movie,
Oh,
but you could
okay.
use the face maker all the time. So whenever that came out in MI2, I was once again also very jacked because I
That's,
loved the
that's
face
so
maker.
like proto Hitman. That's cool.
Or
Yeah.
I was thinking of
Yeah.
that other game where you're essentially Venom, and you could just like
Oh,
change.
prototype
Oh
Yeah,
actually.
that'd be
Yeah,
cool
yeah,
if
I
they
yeah.
did
forgot about
that
that game.
style. Or
Yeah.
like you could beat someone up and then your face becomes their face.
Oh, I never played it, but I remember you were talking about it a lot whenever I think it had
Yeah.
just come out.
It was
Maybe.
the old Xbox 360 days.
Yeah.
Yeah. Those good old days. But also like it's just kind of fun because when you think of Mission Impossible movies, you think of like the big stunts. But there's also like there's a scene where he has they don't know what the virus does at this point, and he has like a little tape in his chest pocket, and they need Sandy Newton to be a thief, grab it, take it to Ethan, have Ethan and Ving Rhames like steal it or like copy it, give it back to her, have her place the bet, have her go back to the boyfriend and put it back in the right pocket. And that seems so exciting, but it's literally just people
Yeah.
walking and walking.
Yeah,
Yeah.
in a horse race.
Yeah. And then like it also like I don't know, it just feels so like every character in this movie feels like a person instead of uh, a big blockbuster movie character, which I found again,
Mhm.
it just kind of it shouldn't feel refreshing, but it does. Like I just watched the Indiana Jones
Yeah.
movie, and even Harrison Ford doesn't feel super Harrison like Indiana Jonesy.
Mhm.
So you kind of like with this one, it's like, oh yeah, this is cool. Everyone's so cool and hot and awesome in this film.
I know.
very
I
neat.
feel like I like the new Mission Impossible movies. Like I would watch any of them at any time, but they did definitely get their brand down, kind of like how Marvel
Mhm.
did. So like it was kind of fun how Mission Impossible 1 is kind of out there and Mission Impossible 2 is just like this crazy X Games. Number
Yeah,
3 is kind of like J.J. Abrams doing his thing or whatever.
It's
And then
almost
the
like
rest of them are just kind of the same movie after a while.
yeah, that like they like nailed it. Well, I was gonna say it's almost like the Freddy movies where the first one's like very real, the second one's like completely different, and then 3 on is just kind of a similar weirdness the whole
Yeah.
time. Yeah.
yeah, they definitely have more of a fun. I mean, I still love them. I think my favorite is the Henry Cavill one. But
Which
now
one?
they're more like that's the one where um, Henry Cavill's in it, and then he's the bad guy.
But do you remember like is it number 5?
I want to say it's
I
Fallout.
think it was
Does he
yeah,
have like a
Fallout.
disease?
It's the one. It's the one where they're like, yeah, no, it's the next one. The one
Yeah,
where he's
'cause
in jail is the
oh,
fourth
okay.
one.
there's a terrorist guy who like in one movie he looks like Steve Jobs and then the next he looks like a terrorist. And then Henry
Yeah.
Cavill's like the other villain in that second one with that guy.
And then he's like, "That's the job." But yeah, I think like, and I kind of wish that we had stuck with because originally the formula was that every single movie was going to be directed by a different director who was going to be like, "Oh, this is what I would do if I was making a Mission
But they're
Impossible."
like stylistic touch. Yeah.
This 100% feels like this is what John Woo would do if he had Mission Impossible.
I know.
And Brian De Palma, like because you watch like or you hear about Winter Soldier and they're like, oh, it's a spy movie, but it's really just a Marvel movie that has like some spy movie coding. But
Yeah.
the original Mission Impossible is 100% a spy movie. Like it's so complicated,
Incomprehensible.
and not
but
in like
fast.
this way where it's kind of
Yeah.
yeah. Like this one's complicated because it's a little bit convoluted, but that one's complicated because it's too smart.
It's like an actual espionage film. Yeah.
Yeah.
And like
yeah.
again, like I just think about this, and I think maybe this is why this one doesn't have as good a reception. Because like imagine if you went into like if we went in to go see like the next Spider-Man movie, and then like as you're watching it, you realize Peter Parker's the bad guy and he's murdered all the Avengers, and then the hero of the movie is just some random dude that's part of the movie. That's essentially what Mission Impossible 1 is, because
Oh,
they
yeah.
took all the heroes from the TV show and they killed them, and then they made Jim Phelps the bad guy.
Yeah.
And so, like, that's such a subversion of expectations. And then you watch this movie, and it's just kind of like, look at this cool ass spy doing cool spy
Yeah.
shit.
Yeah.
I've never seen the show. I've never seen the series from.
I think I've
Way
seen
back
like an
when.
episode.
I've
but
seen a couple. I know enough to know who the main players are and know that Mission Impossible murders the shit out of all of them.
That's
And
crazy.
like
I had
Ethan
no
Hunt is like
idea.
the only one who's not. Yeah, like, Ethan Hunt's the only one who's like a completely new creation, and that's why he's so.
Yeah, and
He's
apparently
not even in
the
the
original
show.
showrunners were pissed.
Huh?
He's not even in the show. Ethan Hunt's
No,
not a
there's no
character in
Ethan
the
Hunt
show.
in the show. Ethan Hunt was a completely new
Oh,
character
what?
that Tom Cruise made up.
Yeah,
I
the
had no
cast of the show like hates the
That's
first
so
one, and
funny.
presumably all the
Well,
rest.
and
'Cause-
because Tom Cruise asked the guy who plays Jim Phelps if he wanted to play Jim Phelps, and he read the script, he was like, "No, I don't want to play." Like I was like the good guy. What the fuck?
Fuck this.
it's pretty
And
funny.
so
Motherfucker.
I could see coming, but like it's almost like this is what movies should do, you know? Like you don't you kind of run into that M Night Shyamalan thing, which thankfully he like kind of figured it out. But there was clearly that point where he kind of thought that he had to be the twist guy, and he was just putting twists on movies as opposed to like kind of
Yeah.
making whatever movie he wanted, and that kind of ends that's a very real risk when you're like always subverting expectations. So it was kind of smart for them to kind of go for a more
Right.
traditional film with this one. You know?
Backfires.
Yeah.
I would agree. It's like a fun, like, I don't know. It just changes it up. Like, I don't know. I guess I could see if you didn't love this movie in junior high, why it might be kind of a bonkers ass movie. But it's like
It's
it's
very like specifically of its time too, of that like the end of the '90s before like the
Mhm.
kind of post 9/11 stuff that we do now. But like he literally, it's like whatever he's like doing like the free solo up the mountain. It's playing like the most '90s song ever, and then instead of a tape recorder with this message, it's a pair of like '90s Oakleys that he has to like whip off, you know, as the message
Yeah.
self-destructs. And it's like
They
that's
come out of
almost
a
like a
tube.
cliche
Like a
for like
weird
how
myth-looking
90s it
tube.
is. It's just
Well,
Yeah.
I
like
mean,
It's the ultimate
was it
90s action thriller.
was
it
this
is.
one was this one Limp Bizkit or Metallica?
It's Metallica, and then Limp Bizkit does the actual theme, so they're both part of it, which is again another like.
I bet
Yeah,
I
I
knew
was
that
like,
back
yep.
then.
I mean, that's the most '90s thing I can think of.
Right,
Yeah,
just
such
the
late 90s.
soundtrack, the vibes.
It's
Yeah.
also kind of cool because like eventually Fatty Newton injects herself with the virus, and so Tom Cruise has a more vested interest because they set her out in Sydney to like
She's
spread
supposed to
the
be kind of like the
disease.
patient zero. She's supposed
Yeah.
to be like the bomb. But
And
she just
so
leaves the city.
yeah, she immediately leaves the city. But I think again, it's so cool because like now even when movies have love interest, they're just kind of like there as well. Like I think of Gamora, like she's not really ever needing to be saved. But this one, the love
Yeah.
interest
She
has
can
like
heal
so
herself.
much impact on the plot. Yeah.
And she's very much a damsel. Like she's the damsel character that's gone away that we don't do anymore. But like
Right.
all of her outfits were like tiny blue shirts and like really nice pants. You know what I mean? Like she was hot like the whole time.
Yeah.
And she can't even like she can drive a car fast, but if she goes over the edge, Ethan Hunt needs to jump over and save her, and then
And
she's
again-
gonna shadow him in the car for no
Yeah.
reason because she was scared.
And if you think that scene where she's dangling from the car isn't going to give you a clear shot of her breasts,
Oh,
you're not paying attention to the movie. I'm
there's
telling
no
you.
down the
There's
shirt
like-
then over a
they,
cliff.
they did apparently want her for the next one, but she had like a I think she had like just had kids or something like that, so she turned it down. But it's like I wonder if she would have been the like wife that he marries in the third one, you know?
Right.
Yeah, that would have made way
Right.
more
Again.
sense.
Yeah, it would have because they walk off in that picnic and they're
Mhm.
having a good time.
Yeah, which is very Bond too. That you should never see the woman again, but again, not
Yeah.
by intent, I think, in this case.
Right.
Well, and it's also funny because, like, again, I love that scene because they're like in a park, and it's like John Woo tried to recreate that famous picnic in the park painting because everyone is doing
Oh,
the
yeah.
most cliched. Like, there's literally people using a volleyball. There's no volleyball courts anywhere around. They're just like everyone's just having like it's like the walk hard thing where they're like, isn't it so great? We're loving life right now.
Yeah, it's super idyllic.
And then
Yeah,
like
like,
the
the
screen
kids
goes
playing, like,
up.
toss behind them and like no one's tossing it to this one kid. And I'm like,
Yeah.
that would be me. But it's like so in the view that it's distracting. It's like
And then it does that thing where it's like the love song, and then as it pans up, it's like dun 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 dun.
yeah,
and
it goes
just,
back
like,
into the
explodes.
Limp Bizkit version.
Also, see again, like you think about how much is missing from a lot of other movies that this movie is doing that. It doesn't need to do like. There's a scene where he wants to get her out because they think that Ambrose might know a little bit or might be more not like he might know more about what she's doing there than he's letting on. And so he's like, I want to get you out of there.
Mhm.
But then it cuts to him thinking about wanting to get her out of there. And they're just like on the Australian outback, and he's just standing in the sunset watching it. And it's just like his silhouette as like all these
Yeah.
colors are behind him.
Yeah.
Like, if anything, this would be kind of annoying because you're staring straight into the sun.
Yeah. It's
Turn
just
around.
such vibes at the time. This movie also has a rare Luther being Rames scene where he gets to kill like a lot of people. Like usually he helps in more like, oh, I'm hacking in like ways, or it's like, oh, I got this like guy. But in this one, he blows up an entire like car full of people with like a grenade launcher just to clear the way. And I was like, yay, he gets to like kill like 6 guys.
It's also funny, like I was saying this yesterday, but it's funny that Luther starts off as like the cool cyberpunk hacker kid who can't be controlled, and like now, because he's still played by Ving Rhames hasn't changed. He's just gotten more gigantic. So now he's like the father mentor figure for Ethan. Like he's always watching. He's like, guys, you know how Ethan is. We got to check up on him. And it's like, that's not the same character.
Yeah.
I mean, if you think about it, he is his oldest living friend at this point because everyone else has died, and Simon Pegg doesn't even come into like the 3rd one. I think.
Yeah. I want to say even the 4th.
No, I
Maybe.
think it's the 3rd one, but he
There's-
only has
In
the
third
last
one.
scene. He's only in the last part.
There's a few that are like in one movie, and then like Jeremy Renner's in like one because I think he was supposed to.
Jeremy Renner's in like 5 of them.
Is he?
Yeah.
Maybe 2.
Yeah,
He
the
was
last
supposed
ones
to
are so
take a-
similar that it's kind of hard to tell them apart.
Yeah,
sometimes.
especially when they start having names like Fallout and Ghost Recon.
Yeah, I don't know
And
any of
then
the
Reese
names.
Darby
Ghost
was in
Protocol.
one, but
is one of them.
apparently so alcoholic they did not invite him back for the next one. So
Really?
I know.
With the guy from New Zealand,
Yeah, I believe so.
he's a crazy alcoholic.
Or maybe he was just having trouble at the time. I don't know his personal life. I didn't look into it.
Whoa. Not to
Please
get on
don't
People
sue me,
magazine.
Reese Darby.
Yeah.
I respect your work.
Maybe he is only in 2. It's just that he has such a presence.
And,
Simon Pegg?
Alec Baldwin kind of is in like a 2 or 3.
Well, he gets
maybe?
killed.
No, yeah,
remember
one
Alec
of
Baldwin
the
being in
latest
them.
ones.
Does he play like a government guy?
Yeah, he
Kind of
plays
the
like
Anthony Hopkins role.
no. He plays the CIA guy.
Oh, that's right.
Like he's not part of MIF. Also, it's kind of funny.
He gets one over
Going
at one
out
point,
with
though.
Ethan to make sure he stays out of trouble or something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He's the one who's like his entire team is compromised in Berlin. That's his role.
That's also that made me
Jeremy-
realize.
Jeremy Renner becomes the Anthony Hopkins type. That's how they keep him without like being like, "Oh, you are never going to take over these movies."
Right, and then they phased him out. But no, this is the only one where Ethan Hunt is not kind of on the run from the U.S. government, where there's
Yeah.
like, "Hey, do your mission." Then he does it, and it's like fine. The rest are like, "You were behind this." He's like, "Guys, we've done this 5 times. I'm never behind this."
It's also like when I was a kid, after I saw the 3rd one, I was like, "How come it's always like? How come it's never just a bad guy? Why is it always the U.S. has to be involved?" And then as I grew up, I'm like, "Oh yeah, that's
Just how it's always been.
well,
That's
never
how we
mind."
feel here.
One of the cool things I found out about this is that Dougray Scott was famously supposed to play Wolverine Logan, and this movie went over schedule, so he couldn't play. And he got injured in that motorcycle. When they were doing motorcycle chariot races, he got hurt surprisingly, and so he had to drop out, and he was replaced
oddly
by a
enough.
young actor named Hugh Jackman.
Damn,
But-
John Woo ruined that guy's life.
But I found out something new. So there was something else. Anthony Hopkins had also been offered a role to play Magneto that he had accepted. And this movie went over budget.
Oh no!
And so he had to drop out. And they had to give the role to Sir Ian McKellen. So that's interesting that this movie is half of the X-Men, or could have been.
It's the 2 that everyone likes, the 2 like most famous.
Yeah.
Although, like Anthony Hopkins had been so iconic at that point that it
Right,
didn't
he's
matter. Like
okay.
he was going to be fine, but Dougray Scott is not a household name.
No,
And
in
it's
that
funny
building.
because if Ian McKellen hadn't gotten that, he also wouldn't have been in another movie called Lord of the Rings.
Did that come X-Men? Oh yeah, I guess yeah, that's
Same
crazy.
time,
Yeah.
2000s.
So
That's
I
so
actually
funny
have kind of a
that
deep cut. What's that?
that Anthony Hopkins or this movie like changed film history in like 4 different ways.
Right.
Yeah.
Accidentally.
Yeah,
It still doesn't get
accidentally.
the credit it deserves.
Right.
I do wonder if this is the first like Tom Cruise insisting on doing a dangerous stunt like thing. Like I don't know, but I can't think of anything that came out prior with him where he was like, "No, I have to be the one jumping up the mountain." You know?
Yeah, I don't know. I always just assumed he always did that.
I don't know.
But you said you had a deep cut, William?
Oh yeah. Well, this is a deep cut for fans of the podcast.
Oh, cool.
If
All
anyone
8 of
remembers,
you.
all 8 of you that have heard every episode, and if you want to go back a little ways with me to the Mission to Mars episode, I'm pretty sure I mentioned that I had 4 DVDs that my collection was comprised of. One of them being Mission to Mars, one of them being X-Men that we're just talking about, one being The Perfect Storm starring George Clooney, number 4 being Mission Impossible 2. Those were my favorite DVDs, and all those movies had come out that summer, and that was what I lived my life around. So we have now
Damn,
done 2 of the 3.
50% De Palma for you.
Yeah.
Well, it's John Woo. Is it?
No.
Wait, what else is De Palma?
Oh no! Right. No, okay.
We
I
got a
fucked myself
Woo.
up.
We got a Peterson. We got Singer, unfortunately.
It's also that's also funny because I bought my DVD player in 1999, so I had like The Matrix, Stepmom.
The
And
Matrix.
I forget the third one. Oh, Lost in Space.
Hell
That's
yeah.
why
Had that on
me and
VHS.
William were like,
Mhm.
and we went off on our different tangents.
So close yet so far away.
And okay, I guess
he was the Duke Gray Scott, or I was the Duke Gray Scott, and he was the Hugh Jackman.
I can't remember. I'm trying to even think of what I had on DVD in the '99. It must probably both Austin Powers movies, which
For sure.
this movie actually, this Mission Impossible 2 usurped Austin Powers 2 as the most profitable spy film of all time, which is a weird, like, it's like, those aren't the same genre. That's clearly a silly comedy, but that's how they say it on Wikipedia. So we all have that connection to this movie.
Yeah.
We really do. It was right whenever DVDs were becoming like fucking everywhere. They were
Just,
so cool.
You had the tower, yeah.
Because
Yeah.
what the audience doesn't know is that when you bought a DVD player, they gave you like 5 DVDs.
Oh yeah.
That's
There's
what
like
happened.
the cheapo $3 Dries from Walmart. And you're like, you know what? I do want the Jason Bourne Part 2 from Walmart for $3.99. I'm never gonna watch it, but I'm
Just
gonna
a
buy
single
it.
disc, no
you know?
special features. Here we go.
Also, I do love how, going back to the movie, I love how much fun Anthony Hopkins is having in this role for no reason whatsoever. He has like 2 scenes, but every scene he's just like giddy over every line that he's saying. You know?
For
He
real.
has the best line in the whole franchise where he goes, "Well, Mr. Hunt, this isn't mission difficult; it's mission impossible."
Yes. Yes.
The most self-aware.
I forgot. I told William this yesterday. I almost forgot. It has another one of my favorite lines of all time, where his henchman, Sean Ambrose's henchman, is like, "Dude, clearly this girl is just boning you to like get information. She's probably working with Ethan Hunt." And then he says something like, and he's like, "How do you know?" And she's like, "She wasn't exactly gagging for it when she left." And then he does the thing where he's like, "I'm gonna beat up this henchman for questioning me," and he tells him, he's like, "She knows I know more than her, and also, henchman, I am gagging for it." And it's like his line.
It made me really evaluate what gagging for it really means, because it's such a confusing phrase. That actually, he also does the "I'm gonna cut off part of your finger with a cigar" clip.
The really special.
Yeah, from Darkman. But that henchman is actually the pervert Duke from Moulin Rouge, who's trying to like rape Nicole Kidman.
Yeah.
And I didn't notice that till like my wife pointed it out. I was like, "Oh shit, yeah, he's doing a normal accent and doesn't have pervert facial hair this time. So
Also, the part whenever he's supposed to be Ethan Hunt, and like he's like leaving the science base, he like walks like so fucking stiff, and it's just like that's definitely not Tom Cruise yet. And then Tom Cruise takes off his face and just walking. Yeah, you don't have it, man. You don't have it.
yeah, when Tom Cruise is escaping like the complex and he still has that guy's face, but he breaks
Yeah.
into the Tom Cruise run. You're like, there he is, and he rips off the mask as he's doing it. It's like, love it.
It's also like I like this one because there's a lot of stealth stuff where Tom Cruise has to like hide. Like there's that scene where there's a guy walking and Tom Cruise is just like above him, just kind of hiding. And I also like I don't know however John Woo does it, but he has it so like Tom Cruise will jump and land and not make any noise, but he makes enough noise so that you know that they didn't take noise out. But he's not making enough noise, but he's not making enough, so you believe that he wouldn't like draw.
Yeah, it's like padded boots or something. Yeah, he's very sneaky.
Another favorite part of the movie is so Tom like to get the virus they have to break into this building and Tom Cruise has to do all this shit and Dougray Scott because they double for each other and they hate each other and so Dougray Scott is like explaining the way Ethan Hunt does things and it's in the most flippant way where he's like I know Ethan he's going to do the stupidest shit to get inside instead of hurting one security guard. and then they show it and Tom Cruise doing all this shit and then Sean Ambrose just walks into the lobby and kills everyone.
Yeah, he's just shooting everyone kind of casually. Yeah.
He's like, it's a medical facility. They're not real cops.
Right, it's gonna be fine, Ethan.
So like I don't know, it's so weird how like strong this movie is and like kind of hitting all the Mission Impossible points, like almost defining them only like to then also have the John Woo style on top of it. I don't know. It's crazy how low rated this is like on Letterboxd and everything because it's so like pitch perfect for like that like period of time, you know.
Totally.
Yeah, it's a perfect.
I was
it's
like,
a good.
My ass off in the best way.
Yeah, it's a good movie like in terms of a Mission Impossible movie, but it's also a good like window into the era of like what we liked in big blockbuster films. It's just like a really fun movie. You don't really have to watch any of the Mission Impossible movies. You could start at any point. Yeah. But like, I think if you're gonna watch one and you didn't really like spy movies, this is the one to watch because it's so fun and it's so like just out there that you kind of like. I don't know. I like all the Mission Impossible movies, but I do wish that they had keep giving it to crazier directors to like do whatever they wanted, you know.
Yeah, giving it to the most average man of all time for the third movie, maybe not the best choice because then they all kind of followed from that.
Became that sort of,
just very like no, not really like specifically stylish, just very like, oh, this is like a modern action movie, you know. So
yeah, it just kind of felt like an episode of Lost.
Give me another time where the wall explodes and you see fire in the villain's eyes, you know.
Yeah,
I know.
give me that again.
You see a dove floating towards his hand.
You also see pigeons in this movie too. They were pigeons the first time, and the second
pigeons
time they were
and a dove. Yeah.
He always starts with pigeons to justify why there's a dove there, and it's because I don't think he knows what a dove is, and so he's like, "Oh yeah, they're just everywhere. They're definitely in Australia."
Yeah. What do you guys have God over there? God's into doves, right?
But yeah, it's a fun time. I think everyone does a great job. It's every time Ving Rhames shows up, it's always good. And it's honestly 20% of the reason I go watch these movies is just to hope that Ving Rhames will show up.
Yeah.
And I hate when they spoil it in the trailer. I like to be annoyed or pleased by the end of it.
Yeah, there's the one where he just comes in the very last 10 minutes.
No, because I think in the third one he doesn't show up at all. Yeah, and so I was pissed. And then in the fourth one, he shows up at the very end, and I was like, "Oh, thank God they're bringing Ving Rhames back!" And then now he's in all of them. But yeah, I like them. I like them all. I don't really like spy movies, so take that as you want. But I do like these movies, especially because they're doing it the right way, putting Tom Cruise at as much danger as possible. Also, the knife was real. I thought the knife was CGI.
On the cord,
a cable on it.
Yeah, not only was the knife real, but Tom Cruise had to fight with literally everyone on set, including the actor and the director in the studio, to get it done. And then Tom Cruise was like, because what they ended up doing was tying a rope so that it was only as Like you could only get this far,
Yeah.
and
And he
then
stood exactly like an inch
Yeah.
more than that away. Yeah, while the guy.
and then Tom Cruise was like, "Okay, now that we've done that," he told Dougray Scott, "Come down as hard as you possibly can." And it's like it could still snap, dude.
Yeah, we're like, yeah, the screw is loose. Yeah, but
Hmm.
you don't get to be the greatest movie star of all time without being that psychotic. So
That's true.
Without,
Honestly,
without being that crazy. But yeah, good movie. I definitely think you guys should go watch the new one. Especially, it's one of the only films. It's not directed by James Cameron. Where I will say you should probably just go check it out in theaters because I bet you they're gonna like
the
set a
spectacle will be worth
set a
it.
car on fire and fly it through space or something.
yeah.
And it's worth your time. And Tom Cruise is not in a cult if we all pretend that he's not. Um,
He's Indian
so
pop
yeah,
culture.
welcome back to the Bomb Squad. We'll be back with another guest episode next week. I think it's going to be Romeo and Juliet or Fish Tank. You'll have to tell me when I release it next week. And then come back. We're still doing Empty Space stuff. Empty Space is going to have some big news coming up this month. So check it out.
Some big dreams.
And we'll see you then. See you guys next time on the Bomb Squad.